Hi guys, George here again at Optics Warehouse, and today I thought I'd go through how to choose big rifle scope. Now I should probably define what I mean by big rifle scope. Really, I'm looking at target scopes, and when I say big, I'm really referring to not necessarily their physical size, but the magnification. Really, we're looking at 30 plus. You know, think your 10 to 40s, stuff of that nature. Although some of these are a fair bit higher than that. So, as with all things, as I've said in the previous series of videos, budget is kind of key, but it's not quite necessarily determining the type of scope you go for with this. Really, it's the discipline you're shooting. So if you're doing extreme long range, again, then you might think, right, I just need as much mag as possible and as good a quality as I can afford. You might think, I can sacrifice a bit of image quality for adjustment, things like that. So there's big pro cons to be weighed up here. If you're FT shooting, air rifles guys, it's going to be all about how snappy that focus is. So I've got a few scopes here in front of me to try and sort of help illustrate some points, and we'll go through it. So first things first, big scope. Why do you need big magnification? Well, the obvious answer is it helps you see further, and extreme long range guys will know this, but there are plenty of people who do shoot 1,000 meters plus on relatively low mag. So it's not the be all and end all, but it does help. Bench rest shooters though, they're not necessarily using it to help them see further, because it might be 25, 50 meters, maybe 100. What they're using that mag for is magnification magnifies everything. So not just the image in front of you, but your input to your setup. So we've all seen it, or all experienced it. You tuck up behind your rifle, you're getting ready to take your shot, and you've got it cranked to the max mag and it's wobbling. Your crosshairs are physically wobbling. You back down the mag, it doesn't wobble as much. Why is that? The magnification is magnifying your input. So when you're doing stuff like bench rest or trying to be as precise as possible, be able to know that your crosshair is exactly where you want it to be, and it's not just off because you can't see it, allows you to be more precise. And that's one of the big benefits of high mag. Next things to consider, and probably say this is, especially for you long range guys, this is the next most important spec. That's your turret adjustment values. So something like this here, this is the Falcon X60, which we've just got, just had a restock of. This is in 1/8 MOAs. So that means every 8 clicks gives you an MOA of movement. Lets you be super precise. Brilliant for bench rest or FT, really precision type disciplines. But if you're shooting real long distance, the disadvantage of that is you're doing a lot of clicks to move the same distance as, say, something in MRAD. Which again, Falcon have an offering for that. This is the S40. This is in 1/10 MRAD, so a centimetre at 100 meters. This will allow you to adjust, basically it's more coarse than MOA, but it means you're not doing as much clicks. It does mean in total you can maybe squeeze a little bit more adjustment into the scope as well. And when you're doing long range targets where you're shooting, chest size, people size targets and things like that, you don't necessarily need that extra precision. You just need to have enough adjustment to get there. So an option like that can be really handy. Also, something to consider in them is, do you work better in metric or imperial units? MOA is quite often called the imperial version. It's not quite, but it's near enough. So it's inches, it's quarters, eighths, 6s and 12s. If you can work in that, MOA is a good option. MRAD is all metric, so it's 5s, 10s, so on and so forth. Whatever works. Truth be told, I don't see it as a one better than the other, personal preference. I've always shot MOA, so that's what I shoot, it's what I know. And I think that's what it is for most of us. Next then, this is where I'm probably going to come on more for you guys in FT, when you're considering a big scope. Parallax, how snappy is it? So the side focus here. Something like this, the Delta Striker, well, this is really a benchmark scope in that we compare everything to it. This is the wall of diminishing returns right here. What you want to look for if you're doing a more range finding based discipline such as FT is when you're turning this focus on your higher mags 30 plus, how quickly that image comes in out of focus. And you want it to be really snappy because then it's easy to mark on your ranging wheel so you know how far away things are. And that's the long and short of it. One thing to consider for you longer range shooters is how far you have until the infinity mark. So every scope that has a side focus has an infinity mark. On the Delta Strikers, it goes after 1500. I can say fairly confidently on the new X60s, it goes well over 2K. I've had this out looking across the hills and I haven't hit infinity past, well, it took him going well past 2000 meters before I hit the infinity wheel. So F-class shooters, that's one to look at. Other things though, for you FT guys, something like the Golden Eagle, that only comes down to, I think it comes down to 20 yards. That's no good for FT. You need to be able to range find closer than that. Conversely though, and this kind of brings us on to our next feature to sort of look out for, and that's weight. So there are certain disciplines that have weight limits to your setups. This is it's a big powerful scope, 60 mag, but it's probably the lightest one I've got here. And that means it's great for something like F-class, where there is a total weight limit on your rifle. And so you need to be balancing these things out. So that's your next most thing. And it is really just, for the most part, weight is only discipline specific. Other than that, it's personal preference. I know there are plenty of people in FT, for example, will make their setups deliberately more heavy because it helps dampen their own wobble. But some bench rest guys, they will go more in depth in terms of balancing that rifle to bring the recoil impulse into just a straight line as possible so that they're always looking on target. So there's things to consider there. The next thing that I'm going to go on, and it's sort of linked to weight in a roundabout way, tube size. So the most common you're going to come across are 30mm, 34mm is probably your standard now on our big scopes. You can get 40s, even bigger. Again, this is a Citron S8. And there's a common myth that bigger tube means more light through. And it is a myth. What allows light through is the size of that, not this. The main reason to have a bigger tube is to get more adjustment. So something like this Citron is built around shooting as far away as possible. That's all this is designed for. It's a precision long range scope. Something like, say, the Golden Eagle, it's more designed around bench rest and F-class, where weight and other things come into consideration and overall size isn't as important. Whereas on something like this, that amount of adjustment is really crucial in order to be able to hit what you're trying to shoot. It is worth noting though that whilst they do not allow more light in, a bigger tube reduces the angle that the light is focused at, and so it can help correct your sort of chromatic aberration, stuff like that. So the way the light's focused. What it means is bigger tube, in theory, should lead to a slightly better image, not necessarily a brighter one. That being said, one thing to consider is then just the quality of the glass, and that's going to dictate your image quality far more than anything else. And that's probably one of the key takeaways to look at here is glass quality is kind of everything in big power scopes. It's why you don't see very many truly budget big power scopes, and if you do, they're typically not the greatest thing. The one exception to that is the Vector Sentinel. That is brilliant for the money. But basically, the more mag you're putting on a scope, the more you're stretching the capabilities of the glass that's in it. And so being able to pay for better coatings allows the glass to basically not be as stressed as much and allow for a better image. The other thing, and it's when you start getting up into the Citrons, your Schmidt and Benders, so on and so forth, that's where you really start to notice the dividends of better glass. All of these here are very good scopes and you could shoot them as far away as you were capable of. But something like the Citron or the Schmidt and Benders, because you've got better glass, you'll be able to sit behind that scope for far longer without straining your eyes, getting the headaches or anything like that, because they're filtering out things as well. They're not just dumping light through in order to get the image, they're filtering out some of the IR wavelengths and so on and so forth that reduce your eye strain and allow you to concentrate for far longer. Other than that, there are some ancillary bits to maybe consider, illuminated rets, things like that. Personally, I don't really look for one, but I know a lot of people do like them. Other things to consider. First or second focal plane. It's probably actually a bigger subject than I've given it credit for. I've got second and first focal plane scopes here. One is not better than the other, they just do things differently. So second focal plane, or SPF, is the most common and it is the cheapest because it's the easiest to make. That is where the ret will appear the same size as you change your magnification. A first focal plane, the ret grows and shrinks or stays in scale with the magnification, and so the aim points always maintain the same value. Again, at the end of the day, it's really personal preference. I hope you guys have found that interesting. If you want to find out more, do get in touch and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.